How's it going? Welcome back to another great video here on the majestic The Savior Show. Oh! Sit back and relax, boys, and grab yourself a coffee, cup of joe, some nice tea, some beers, whatever you want, okay? Sit back, relax. Today, we're gonna discuss Evil West. Let's jump into it. That's what the cool YouTubers say, isn't it? Goddamn idiots. Today, I'm going to give you my Evil West game review. Now, I've only played the preview version of the game, but I've played enough to give you my honest review of Evil West. I don't think you need to play a full game to get the idea if a game is good or not, and that way I can save you, the consumers, time and money. But please never pre-order games, even if I give it a high recommendation. Never pre-order games because I've talked about it before. The modern day gaming industry are soulless corporate scum now, and all they want is your money. It's very difficult to find good quality games that are polished, that aren't completely broken on release nowadays. So never give them your money before you actually get the product in hand, and before a lot of people, not just one reviewer, has given you different opinions on the game, so that's my advice. If you do enjoy this content, this beautiful content that we all love to consume, make sure that you do subscribe, join the community today. I would be honored to have you as a disciple of the Savior channel, and check out my music on Spotify, support me there, and I'm sure you will like my synth music that I create. It's very different and weird. And support the show by dropping a small donation on PayPal so I can keep doing this because YouTube. So here is my review of Evil West. I do just have to say this, in my Evil West review, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Remember that my opinions are just my own and they might be different from yours. Whoa, that's interesting. People have different opinions. You can't allow that in 2022, and I'm happy to report that Evil West is actually a good game. It's actually a fun time, believe it or not. Thank God we actually have a good game. Like I said, it's very difficult to find good quality games nowadays. It's not like it used to be, because it's all about money now. It's all about microtransactions, it's all about live service games, it's all about following a checklist that the corporate board can check off and say, yes, that makes a good AAA open world game. You can now ship it to the public, even though it's not ready, and even though we've made you work overtime, and it's a complete fucking failure. Gaming no longer cares about quality control, and it's very generic. It's not like the creative passion that it used to be for many developers. But hey, we do still get good games, and Evil West is one of them. So first, let me just say this. Evil West is a third-person action shooter. It's a linear story game, and in fact, it reminds me a lot of games from the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 times, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't mean that it feels dated in its gameplay mechanics, but in its feel, in its function, it does remind me a lot of those older games, which is quite nostalgic and refreshing, honestly, because it's not trying to be a big bombastic open world adventure with so many things to do. It's just focusing nicely on its combat, on its gameplay mechanics, and it's actually polished. It's not too buggy. I haven't actually found that many bugs in it whatsoever, which is surprisingly rare. In a lot of ways, it does remind me of Gears of War, however, throwing in the kind of melee combat from the recent God of War / DMC, and I'll get into the combat a little bit more with more detail, but I'm just giving you an overview. So it's a weird blend of old and new design, which I like, honestly, and it's refreshing. So the weapons that you have in this game is you have this power fist. I have the power. You have this special gauntlet that you can use to, chain these melee combos, which is very satisfying, and you can upgrade it so the electricity effect on it is even more powerful, and it hits multiple enemies at once, which is very satisfying, okay? Ooh, it makes me reach climax when that happens. Also, you have a flamethrower, a shotgun, a revolver, and you can upgrade all of these guns by using the skill tree, and that is rather generic, I have to say. It's nothing that special. It's not like the abilities in Prey, for example, where it's unique and you can turn yourself into a goddamn glass cup if you want to, but it is still refreshing in the sense that you do feel that you get more powerful, and it doesn't feel like all the enemies just scale with you. You do get that feeling of progression, which is nice. So, the story. Well, basically, Jesse, that's who you play, okay, is a monster hunter. Basically, a cowboy version of The Witcher, where you go around and you hunt monsters. It kind of reminds me of Van Helsing. I don't know if you've ever seen that film. I loved that shit when I was a teenager. I loved that shit when I was a little boy. And you get that sense of being a badass monster hunter, which is pretty moist. Now let's get on to the enemies. So we have different enemy types. We have the boohags. We have the boohags. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but basically they're the standard generic zombie type enemies. They cluster together, you know, like a bunch of redditors, and yeah, basically they're easy to kill, and they just kind of swarm you. Then you have the nagals, which is like a fluffy type enemy that ambushes you, and basically with that you have to be on your tip-top condition to face them off, because they are quick, okay? They have this ability called Shadow Step, which is very fun and engaging to play around with, and you have to kind of figure out your combat style and the best way to tackle them. Then you have the leechers, which is a shield type enemy. They are big and bulky, and they only have, you know, a set opening. Kind of reminds me of Dark Souls, because you actually have to use timing. But yeah, that's pretty fun as well. And then you have the highborns, and the highborns are the privileged. They have to check their white privilege, okay? But the highborns are an enemy. Basically, they're the boss type enemy, and they're pretty dangerous, and the boss battles in this are quite engaging. I would rather the boss battles to be more unique, but they are still fun, even if they are reused. But what I like about the enemies, it's kind of doing the same thing that Doom did, where each enemy is like a chess piece, and you have to think about, you know, how you're going to interact with each enemy and what the tactic is. And that's not the only thing that reminds me of Doom, because in this, basically you have finishers like Doom. You get the enemy to a certain point and they become weak, and just like in the old God of War and the new ones, then you can perform a finisher, which is very satisfying, and it does have that kind of Doom / God of War type combat. You also get complicated combo combat, which is nice, where you can chain your attacks together, you can kind of juggle them up in the air, which does remind me of DMC. So it's a weird mixture of Doom, God of War, and DMC, and cowboys. If that sounds cool, that's because it is goddamn cool, and that's what's great about this game. It's the combat. The combat is very engaging, it's very fun, you feel weighty, you feel like a big boy, everything that you do has weight to it. Yahoo! So one of the best things about this game is, this game, because it's mostly about the combat, I'm gonna discuss the story just a little bit, because I don't know that much about it. I've only played certain aspects of it, and the story is not that good, I've got to be honest. But this has multiplayer, okay, and that's a great thing, because this game is all about fun. It's just about having combat situations that are engaging and that is fun, and linear levels that you progress through, and it just feels like a roller coaster, and it's not that long. It's not got much replayability to it, but sometimes you don't need that. You just need something that's engaging, and the combat here is engaging. A simple co-op game. I hope this has split screen. I don't think it does, because couch co-op is dead. I wonder why. Is that so they can sell more copies and make more money, and they don't actually want people to socially interact in a real environment anymore, and everything has to be digital? This game is developed by Flying Wild Hog, okay, and they are the same people who made Shadow Warrior. And if you've ever played a Shadow Warrior game, the one thing that's great about that game is the combat, is the fluid motion of it. This feels less floaty and more weighty, sometimes to its detriment, but mostly it feels good, but it just can feel a bit sluggish at times when there are a lot of enemies to engage with. But most of the time it works, because you will use your powers to kind of zip-zap across the room and towards enemies. But, you know, to begin with, it does feel kind of sluggish, but it's nice. The combat here is very tasty, but the good aspects, like I said, it's a combat, it's for co-op, it's for single player, linear focused structure to this game. And they know exactly how to make a good combat game. They did the same thing with Shadow Warrior. But now let's just talk briefly about the negatives. So, number one, like I said, this game, don't expect replayability like most big AAA games nowadays, where you can, go and play it again completely differently, even though it's usually boring and regurgitated, open world game design. This, like I said, is a kind of one and done type game, but you will want to go back and play it, but you might want to play it by yourself first and then play it again with a friend. That will give it some more replayability, but that is still fun because, like I said, of the combat. Just think of Doom and how great Doom was. And the other negative being that the story is meh. Okay, it's just meh. It's not that good. It's boring. The Flying Wild Hog development team have never been good at creating characters, okay? The writing in their games are always, kind of just shit. I've got to be honest. Shadow Warrior is very much focused on the humor side of things. This does have strong humor in it, but it is trying to be slightly more serious, but I just don't care about the characters. The writing here is just not that good, but like I said, that's not the main focus of this game. But if you want a story game that you can, truly immerse yourself into, this is not it. It's not something like, Skyrim. And the final thing is, to break up the combat, what they do is they fill it with generic puzzles. And I'm so tired of, shooter games just trying to fill their time with either boring, dialogue, which it does as well, or boring puzzles. At least make something interesting, maybe platforming, where you actually have to, use your brain, or interesting puzzles. But the puzzles here are very generic, very boring, and that's a negative. Like I said, I haven't seen too many bugs, so that's good. So yeah, that's my review of Evil West, my game review of Evil West, and I think this is actually a good time, and it's worth buying. Wait for a sale, because why buy it at full price? You can wait a few weeks, can't you? Or are you that desperate to play a new game when there are billions of games to play? But support the developers here, because they are actually doing a good job, in my opinion, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like I said, join the channel. Make sure that you do subscribe and give it a like and hit the notification bell. Ding, ding, ding. Kill me now. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.